Have you ever loved someone with all your heart only for them to disappoint you, betray you, or leave you with emotional scars? Today, we'll take a deep dive into why so often intense love ends in shattering heartbreak and how Islam shows us a way to true and lasting love. What is one aspect that entire human life revolves around, yet we rarely explore how it works? If you think about it, human life is all about connections. We have different types of connections, such as connections with our parents, spouse, children, siblings, and friends. We even form connections with things. When we say my house, my car, or my pet, those words represent emotional attachment and a connection. Let's get into the inner dynamics of human connections. First of all, where do these connections actually reside? They live in our memory. For example, let's say you get into an accident and you lose your memory. You will not feel that connection towards your loved ones anymore, or at least not as strong. Also, because human memory fades away over time, our connections need to be refreshed and revived constantly. Otherwise, they become weak, resulting in family and friends turning into strangers over time. Imagine if your father left you when you were 5 and then he met you again at the age of 45. You wouldn't feel an immediate deep connection towards him, even though he is still your biological father. This is because the connection was never refreshed. One form of strong positive connection is love. When we love someone, that person naturally lives in our memory all the time and we keep remembering them. We keep refreshing love by meeting them and spending time with them. Note that our emotional well being heavily depends on the health of our relationships. Toxic relationships can deeply damage a person psychologically, causing loneliness, depression, bitterness, or unresolved anger. In many ways, much of the senseless violence we see in society today is the tragic overflow of broken human relationships. Healthy relationships, on the other hand, give us strength, peace, emotional stability, and ultimately contribute to a healthier society. Every relationship has its own requirements and protocols which make it stronger. For example, requirements of a strong relationship between a father and a son are different from the protocols of husband and wife. Have you ever wondered why we praise and glorify others? Praise and glorification is a way of broadcasting a strong relationship. For example, when you praise your friend saying, "My friend is such a great guy," you are expressing to the outside world that your connection with your friend is healthy and strong. We rarely notice the invisible role these connections play in directing our daily choices. If I randomly walked up to you on the street and said, "Hey, can you go buy some groceries for me?" You'd be like, "Why should I? Who are you?" But if your loving father asked you to do the same thing, you'd be like, "Sure, Dad, absolutely. I'll put some gas in your car too." The difference is not the request, it's the connection. You have a bond with your father, but not with me. So the takeaway is that connection changes behavior. People in business and politics understand this. That is why they invest massive amount of time, effort, and money into building connections, so they can leverage them to climb the ladder of money and material success. Unfortunately, their vision is limited to the material aspect of it. They are so dazzled by money that they totally miss its spiritual dimension. We human beings have to understand that above material connections, we also have a connection with God. This connection has so many angles that books can be written about it. Think about it. God is our creator and we are his creation. God is the most merciful and we are the recipient of his mercy. God is the ultimate sovereign king of heavens and earth, and we are his insignificant servants. God is the light of heaven and earth, and we are in darkness without God's light. God is the provider of our food, water, and air that we breathe. He is the originator of our life, and one day he will take it back. Then we will return to him, which is our final destination forever. Most of all, God is the orchestrator of all our other connections. All of our relationships and connections come from God's knowledge and will. Therefore, our connection with God should be deeper and stronger than all other connections combined. But why does it feel so academic and superficial? Sort of like meeting your father for the first time at the age of 45. We know that God exists, but we don't feel His presence in our heart. It seems easier to cater to family and friends or even boss rather than follow God's commandments. We commit sins so casually and it doesn't even seem like a big deal. All of this is a symptom of an inactive relationship with God. Note that connecting with God is an innate psychological need of human beings. The seed of this connection is in every human being, and that's why human beings have always been seeking for God through different religions and spiritual traditions. Just like all other connections, the connection with God also resides in our memory. We just need to activate this connection, but how? This is where Islam enters the picture. The connection with God has three main ingredients: love of God, fear of God, and trust in God. Like every relationship, it also has its own requirements and protocols, and Islam provides us with a practical framework for fulfilling them. Islam teaches us the daily routines of remembrance, glorification, and structured worship protocols designed to cultivate and anchor this connection within our memory so that it naturally reflects in our everyday actions. The Quran's term for this continuous remembrance of God is dhikr, through which the heart increasingly becomes attached to God. Once this attachment is developed, obedience begins to flow naturally. Avoiding sin no longer feels like constantly dragging yourself against your own desires. Your heart itself begins to dislike what displeases God. Over time, this attachment becomes so intense that it becomes larger than life itself. The Quran beautifully describes it in chapter 3, verse 190 and 191 that those who understand their own essence are in remembrance of God while sitting, standing, lying, or even in their sleep. This gets to the point where remembrance and glorification of God becomes a lifestyle and a state of being rather than a ritual. To understand why this is so vital, let's look back at our own lives. Have you ever noticed when we are little kids, we are in an intense and unfiltered love with our parents? We express feelings to them straight from the heart. But as we grow up, we start to place filters on the expression of our love and its intensity diminishes. In adolescence, we fall into another type of love. This is where most of us are taken advantage of, and we experience betrayal, disappointment, rejection, abandonment, and emotional or physical manipulation, etc. The lesson we learn is that it is not practical to love anyone with pure love because no one can fulfill our expectations that come with such love. And not only that, our beloveds even exploit our love for their own advantage. Try it. Unleash your raw and unfiltered love to someone. They'll most likely run away from you and say this person is a freak or a stalker. So, as a defense mechanism, we build walls around our heart and make it numb and hard. We make our love transactional because going all in and completely submitting to love means becoming vulnerable to betrayal, ridicule, and exploitation. So we end up giving even our close family and friends a filtered version of love with some boundaries and compromises. But then the question is, why do we carry this immense, breathtaking treasure of love inside us if we cannot fully spend it? The answer is that the deepest love, along with its sky high expectations, is not meant for other human beings or anything in creation. Nothing in creation has the capacity to carry the full weight of raw, unfiltered, and pure, intense love. That's like giving your diamond ring to a toddler. The toddler will play with it for a while and then throw it away because toddlers simply do not have the capacity to appreciate the value of a diamond. This ocean of love is a divine gift and trust. It is only meant to be given back to God the Most High. And when you learn to love God, you become a true believer. The Quran describes it in chapter 2, verse 165 that Among people are those who love others as they should love God, but the believers are intense in their love for God. The Quran tells us whoever relies heavily on creation rather than God is like someone who builds a house as fragile as a spider's web. And we experience that statement in real life when we think we built a house for our heart, but it shatters like a spider's web. But when you love God, you can go all in and submit your heart with full submission to God, which is what Islam means. And you can do it with the confidence that God will never betray you or fall short on your expectation because God is not weak and imperfect like human beings. God is the only one that can handle the weight of pure love and match its energy. He will channel that powerful love by letting you go through trials and hardships in His path. This detaches your heart from the unhealthy bonds with the creation and increases you in love with God. In the end, when you finally meet God, He will honor you. And the Quran tells us that not only will He fulfill your hopes and expectations you have from Him, but He will exceed your expectations beyond your imagination. This is the exact love that Prophet Jesus Christ, peace be upon him, talked about when he was asked, "What is the greatest commandment?" And he answered, "Love God with all your heart and soul." Notice the brilliance in his answer. When you love God with that level of intensity, you don't have to force yourself to stay away from sins. You will naturally stay away from what God dislikes. Prophet Jesus, peace be upon him, gave humanity an organic, love driven way to follow the rest of God's commandments. He certainly did not mean that you could claim to love God and then become free to break other commandments, reducing the love of God to a cheap slogan rather than a transformative relationship. Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, "Whoever possesses the following qualities will have the sweetness of faith. Number one, the one to whom Allah and His Apostle become dearer than anything else. Number two, who loves a person and he loves him only for Allah's sake." On the surface, the first point may sound like he's asking to love God and His Prophet at the expense of loving everybody else. And the second point may sound like loving people only for the sake of God or not loving them altogether. However, in reality, when you learn to love God, you realize that God's love is a transcendent love. And now your love for creation is channeled and refined through this higher form of love. Before, your love with your family, friends, and other creations was a selfish and fragile love, which was based on how they make you feel, how much attention they give you, how useful they are to your purposes, or how much material benefit they can bring to you on the table. But when you learn to love for the sake of Allah, you would love them with unconditional love because they are God's creation and a gift of God that God has placed in your life. So your love will not be affected by your personal preferences, benefits, or vendettas because now you love them for a higher purpose. So when the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is talking about loving only for the sake of Allah, he's talking about elevating your heart from selfishness to transcendent love. This beautifully connects to the second greatest commandment told by the Prophet Jesus Christ, peace be upon him, when he said, "Love your neighbor as yourself." For people trapped in selfish love, this would be a soundbite which is inspiring but impractical. How can I love someone else as myself? Am I supposed to buy my neighbor the exact same food I eat or the exact same car that I drive? That's impossible. They don't realize that Jesus Christ, peace be upon him, is talking about transcendent love, and the parameters of transcendent love are different. So imagine everyone loving their neighbors for the sake of Allah. Jesus, peace be upon him, just gave the blueprint of an ideal society where everyone loves everyone else with the transcendent love. So there would be no crime with people genuinely looking out for one another. But you cannot understand the depth of the second greatest commandment without having loved God with all your heart and soul, which is the first greatest commandment. Once you experience transcendent love, you realize you no longer need to build defensive walls around your heart or make it hard and insensitive. Rather, true love makes you even more sensitive, compassionate, and humane. Your heart is now on a higher plane where it feels grief and other emotions to their fullest, but then lets go and does not perpetually hold on to them. You will never need to resort to drugs, distractions, or violence to sweep your emotional trauma under the rug. Instead, you alleviate your emotional pain through the dhikr of Allah, as the Quran says. Surely, in the remembrance of Allah do hearts find comfort. Another interesting difference you will notice is that over time, as you become mature in true love, you will be able to clearly see when your family, friends, and other loved ones try to manipulate you for their selfish love. But instead of feeling exploited, you will smile at them, just like when a toddler tries to trick you to get a candy and you give it to them with a smile in heart. You also learn to avoid toxic relationships and form new connections with people who love you for the sake of Allah, because you know their love will not decrease due to mood swings, change in circumstances, petty disagreements, or just because they are bored of you now. And if someone departs, it doesn't create a lasting emotional scar because your heart is grounded in its attachment with God, and you know God will never abandon you. And not only that, when you always feel God's presence in your heart, you will never be lonely or bored. So you will not be on your human beloved's case 24/7 to the point that they feel suffocated and run away from you. Now, this is just a glimpse into the nature of true love. This relationship is so vast that books could be written about it. But love is not the only ingredient in this divine connection. True love naturally protects what it values, and that is where the concept of the fear of God and absolute trust in God come into play. Since fear is often associated with tyranny and coercion, people usually have a problem with it and they ask, why do we need to fear God? They mistakenly confuse it with fearing tyrants and oppressors in creation, which is a lower form of fear. They don't realize that the fear of God is also a transcendent fear, and it frees you from all lower forms of fear, because when you fear God, you fear no one and nothing else. A quick example would be in a high-stake court case, a corrupt government or a powerful lobby might pressure a judge into issuing an unjust verdict. But if that judge fears God, he will uphold justice regardless of the threats from kings, presidents, or billionaires, no matter what the consequences. Another example would be a thief becomes anxious and terrified the moment he sees a police officer, even if the officer is not looking for him. But if that thief had been a God-fearing person, he would have never stolen in the first place, and there would be no reason to live in constant fear of the law. So if you do not fear God alone, you will spend your life fearing countless others from His creation. Likewise, when we love and fear God, we also put absolute and complete trust in God. God will never betray our trust because God never breaks His promises and God is not weak like human beings. The Quran says, chapter 2, verse 256, whoever rejects transgression and believes in God has grasped a handhold that has no break in it, kind of like Noah's ark that cannot drown no matter how bad the flood and storm. This is by no means a spider's house anymore. So now we somewhat understand the nature of true love on an academic level. How do we practically ignite it in our heart? I will describe one way to start it. Think about it. When we are introduced to someone, what is the first thing that we know about that person? The name of the person, right? The Quran teaches us 99 beautiful names of Allah that describe His divine attributes. The Quran wants us to call upon Allah by those names and do dhikr of His names day and night. Also, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, whoever commits to memory the 99 names of Allah will enter paradise. So we will learn the beautiful names and their meanings and turn our heart towards them, and you will be surprised how much impact they will have on you. There are many videos online that recite them, and I will put two of my favorite ones in the description of this video. In the beginning, you can start with just 5 minutes and you can rotate some names every day. Just give me 5 minutes a day. Sit in a quiet place, put earplugs in your ears, and close your eyes so there is no distraction while you are doing the dhikr of the beautiful names. Then imagine that you are in the presence of God and there is nothing else. Then bring each name to your memory and do some tadabbur, which is contemplation of that name on how it relates to the whole universe, including you, and ask God for the blessing of that name. open your heart and make your heart fully receptive. For example, one of God's name is Ar-Rahman, which means the most merciful. So imagine God showering His mercy on His creation. So make your heart fully receptive and ask humbly for His endless mercy. Another name is Al-Mumit, the giver of death. Imagine that everyone dies only by the will and permission of God. Realize that one day you will also leave this world and stand before Him. Ask God to give you death when He is fully pleased with you. Once you get into the rhythm, you will most likely feel tears on your eyes. Let them flow. These tears will wash away your past guilt, trauma, grudges, and other unhealthy emotions your heart is holding on to. For a period, you may feel confused and disoriented too, because now your heart is changing direction from creation towards the Creator. Keep doing it and increase the duration until your heart is grounded. You will notice that in different times, some names will resonate with you more than others. In the next stage, open the Quran and start reading. You will see that there is no other book that can match the Quran on how it strengthens your connection with God. The Quran will teach you on how to surrender your heart to God with full submission. It will teach you God's glorification, which is music to the soul. It will create God's fear in your heart and invite you to absolutely trust God through examples. Then you will be able to experience the true meanings of the pillars of Islam, which are 5 prayers, fasting, charity, and pilgrimage, and they will take you to the next level. Eventually, you will realize that God's commandments were never meant to be an impossible burden on the human being. There are just various ways to always keep refreshing the connection and to make the ecstasy of divine love stronger with every single action. Once you taste an actual connection with God, you will never look back. So, oh my brother or sister, in these times when human selfishness is at an all-time high, if you are tired of going from person to person looking for true love, stop building fragile spider webs as your house. Grab the handhold which has no break in it. Submit your heart to God with full submission and go all in. In Islam, we call it Shahada. I invite you to take your Shahada today and set yourself on this journey of true and transcendent love. Repeat after me. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. I bear witness that there is no deity worthy of worship except Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad is his servant and messenger. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next video, inshallah.